guys, Lisa here. Hope you're well. I hope you had a good Valentine's Day and that the first Venus-Mars conjunction boded well for you. I know it was quite a tricky one and things didn't really go entirely to plan. So I thought it might be an idea just to do another reading for the second conjunction that's happening in March, which is an interesting one actually from an astrological point of view. We've got a sort of a build-up towards it. It happens on the 6th of March, but before that we've got a new moon on the 2nd. And this new moon coincides with a conjunction to Jupiter, which I think should bode well for the 2 weeks of the waxing moon. And then on top of that, the following day, Venus and Mars apply to Pluto. And I think that could really be kind of make or break for some people. It could really sort of lead to revelations or sort of insights, so like the truth coming out, people speaking their truth, or kind of a crisis of some kind where they have to kind of fess up or come clean about their feelings, or just also realize potentially what needs to be released, because then on the 6th both Venus and Mars change signs. They move into the sign of Aquarius, and as they do so, they make their second conjunction. So it's an interesting one. It takes place in air signs, and that's going to be good for particularly those people who've got a lot of fire and air in their chart. So the first conjunction was good for earth and water signs, and the second one I think will be good for those people who've got a lot of fire and air placements. So that's why I've chosen slightly different crystals. I've got sort of quartz here, which I think kind of goes well with the sign of Aquarius. And I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of comes out in the readings. The first lot I think were quite heavy, so I'm hoping that these ones will be a little bit lighter. But let's get into them and see what's in store. So I've got 3 piles for you to choose from. Pile 1 is the stone, the Faith Stone. Pile 2 is calm, and pile 3 is love. So take a moment to see which pile kind of resonates with you. I will be kind of checking in with the energies beforehand so that you can assess whether you've made the right choice. So don't sort of stress about it too much, but kind of drop down into your body, see what kind of pops out at you, and then just go to the description box and you'll find short codes to the time codes to the correct readings. Hi guys, if you chose pile 1, this is going to be your reading. So that would be if you picked the stone that reads faith, and yes, you can see this. We've got this sort of Gaelic on the back. So let's start with your with some of your oracle cards, and I've got connecting energy, and then I've also got some information about each person, so it will help you to make up your mind as to whether this is your reading. And then afterwards we'll kind of get into the tarot, we'll get some advice from the oracles, and then I'll finish off by putting some name tiles. So let's kind of get into this and see what we can see. So we've got cards for the connecting energy, and we've got 2 cards each for each person. So I'm not reading sort of with any kind of gender in mind. If it's just kind of about positive or negative energy, or kind of masculine and feminine energy, in the sense of the same as in astrology, where we've got so-called yin signs and yang signs. But anyway, let's get into the connecting energy first. Okay, interesting. So we've got a lot of earth here actually. We've got the card, it's called groundedness or gravity, and it's number 39. So that breaks down to a 3, if I'm not mistaken. And then we've got the sign of Capricorn here. So that may be important. It might be an important chart placement for one or kind of both of you, or it might also hark back to the first Venus-Mars conjunction that we had, which was in the sign of Capricorn. And of course, as I did say at the beginning of this reading, that both Venus and Mars are going to be making a conjunction to Pluto in Capricorn before they change signs for their second conjunction. So that might be relevant. That astrological transit might be important for this particular connection. But I think what it's kind of saying is that this is quite a grounded connection, that both people feel kind of stabilized, or kind of that somehow the connection helps to sort of make them feel more rooted in the earth. You know, we've got this kind of woman who's sitting on top of the earth, and then we've got all these planets around, and then two butterflies, which seem to be kind of pulling her soul upwards. But then we've got all these animals around the earth, similar to the zodiac actually. But you know, the zodiac in Greek means sort of circle of animals. So I do feel as though, given that we've got Capricorn here as well, that that this particular connection, you know, it is based in something quite solid and real and pragmatic, and that both people kind of have their eye on the future and want to try and sort of you know, not be overly idealistic, because that is something that that is a kind of a weakness of the sign of Aquarius. You know, that it can be a little bit idealistic and perhaps unrealistic when it comes to expectations, you know, in relationships. And I kind of feel as though what it's saying is that both these people are the opposite. They're quite realistic. They know what they want. They don't really do like casual connections. I feel as though that this is two people who prefer like a more long-lasting, solid type of commitment, and might be quite traditional too, because the sign of Capricorn does tend to be quite traditional in terms of the way that they conduct relationships. But I think at root, you know, these two people could also be quite ambitious. You know, Capricorn is very ambitious, and it does like to succeed. It also likes to be respected by its community. So that might be important to this particular couple, to sort of legitimize their relationship, or for people around them to approve of it. But I think, you know, on the whole, it does seem as though it's rooted in something substantial and solid. So let's look at the two individual energies now. Oh, that's fascinating. So we've got the butterfly on this side, and then we've got the cobra and on the other. So yes, interesting. So we've got fire and we've got air, and that again is fascinating, given that you know, that the conjunction of Mars and Venus at this time is going to benefit fire and air signs most. But let's kind of start with the butterfly person. I mean, I think it's so interesting that we've actually got butterflies in this image here. We've got two white butterflies. And, you know, generally speaking, butterflies tend to symbolize transformation. So it could be that this person has undergone some kind of important transition, initiation, crisis of some kind. And, you know, that Pluto conjunction to Venus and Mars in Capricorn could be relevant to this particular person. It could be that you know, if they are halfway through some kind of transformation or transition, that possibly that conjunction will accelerate the process and really sort of help for this person to sort of come out the other side. I mean, butterflies, you know, do tend to flit around, you know, from kind of flower to flower. They can be a little bit whimsical, or sort of easily distracted by pretty things. You know, I mean, you know, air as a kind of a quality is associated with the heart, but, you know, in the butterfly it can be flighty. So it may be that this person has had to learn to be grounded, you know, with this gravity energy, and it could be that the other person helps to ground them. You know, it could be that, you know, maybe this person switches on their root center or something like that, or just that this person through life has learned that, you know, in order to really benefit most from life and from relationships, that you do have to commit at some point, and you do have to develop, you know, regular routines, or show up regularly in a relationship in order to nurture it and to feed it and to help it to grow. And of course that, you know, that brings sort of mutual satisfaction to both parties. And then we've got Under My Umbrella, which I think came up in the last reading too. So there may be a connection between this set of readings and the last set of readings. I can't remember which pile it was that had this card, but I mean, Under My Umbrella is interesting. You know, we've got a man on the back of a bird, and he's holding an umbrella over its head. And again, it's interesting that we've got air here again. You know, birds are kind of, you know, birds, flight, that kind of thing seems to be important. But then we've got this person on the bird's back, and they seem to be quite confident that they can offer shelter to the bird, even though the umbrella only really covers its head. So it could be that that the butterfly person feels that the cobra person helps to ground them mentally, that maybe they've got an overactive third eye chakra that kind of makes them overthink things, overanalyze. And when we know with the mind, you can just kind of go round and round and round and sort of never get anywhere. There's always sort of one thought that will supersede another. So it could be that, with the umbrella here, that the butterfly person feels that the cobra person helps to shield them mentally from kind of like psychological storms, if you like, so that they can see more clearly and make better decisions. But I mean, this is quite a protective energy. It's interesting. And I mean, the thing about birds too is that they like freedom, and it doesn't seem as though this person being on the I don't know if I think it's a parrot, on the parrot's back, doesn't seem to be like weighing the bird down at all. It seems to be a relatively kind of easy situation where one person's offering support to the other, psychological support. And I mean, it's interesting that we've got this groundedness and gravity here, that it could be that, as I say, that what has been needed in terms of the butterfly person is the sense of groundedness, the sense of like having someone that is almost like a kind of, that helps to center them and creates almost sort of like I don't want to say a home base, but like a landing, sort of platform that they can sort of come back to, like if they kind of go off and have a little moment, and then and then kind of come back, or if they go off on some flight of fancy. Yes, so I mean, I do feel that even though we've got masculine energy here with the air sign, that the butterfly is quite ethereal and kind of whimsical. So I feel like this is slightly more feminine energy here. And then, I mean, interesting with the cobra, we tend to think of the cobra in terms of sort of mesmerizing and like striking, but in this particular deck, Kim Kwan sees the cobra more as a sort of as the inner teacher. Like the in the Egyptian sort of iconography, you have that cobra between, like in the third eye position, like on the crown, sort of, you have the kind of the crown of the pharaoh, and the cobra sits in the middle, sort of over the third eye. So this is more about somebody who is able to see very clearly with their third eye, who's kind of a visionary, and who is very wise, who's sort of like a teacher to a lot of people, who brings wisdom. And this is the fire element as well, and of course the element of fire is associated with spirit. So even though we tend to think of it in terms of passion, in terms of the like the Platonic system, it's also associated with fire. So I feel like this person is generally quite wise. They tend to hang back a little bit, so they don't micromanage, but they see very clearly. And if and if you ask them, then they'll kind of offer their opinion, and it'll usually be very considered advice. So in terms of human design, I would see this as being similar to like a projector, somebody who doesn't feel the need to control, but who nonetheless is very wise and gives very good advice. So I think it fits very well with this idea of this male energy holding an umbrella over the head of the bird here, that this person in some way is almost like a spiritual teacher or a counselor to the butterfly person, and that this may have led to a transformation of some kind, or be leading to a transformation of some kind. And I mean, if we think about the sign of Capricorn and this idea of groundedness, Capricorn to a large extent can be that sort of wise parent, or elder figure or kind of mentor. So it may be that there's an age difference between these two people, or it could just be a difference in terms of experience or maturity. You know, that might be relevant in this situation. But nonetheless, I feel like this person is more of the teacher, the cobra, and this person is more of the pupil, and that these two people have come together to learn important lessons, particularly the butterfly person. And then we've also got this card Journey, which is a 19, breaks down to it's the number of the sun. So it's in certainly in the tarot deck, it's the number of the sun, but of course it does, yeah, I mean, it breaks down to a 1, so that's also the number of the sun. And this is a 20, so that's interesting. We've got solar energy, we've got lunar energy, so that seems to confirm that this person is more feminine, and that this person has more of a masculine energy. So here we've got the Journey, and I mean, again, an interesting image. First of all, I think the colors are interesting. You know, she's got a red, looks like a red rose in her hair, and these very interesting emblems on her dress, which remind me of sort of medieval European symbology. It reminds me of maps. It also reminds me of, you know, geometric shapes and things. So geometry might be important. Yes, but what's interesting about this particular card is that it's all about two people or two energies that are kind of having fun. They're on a journey together. So I think this fits with the idea of a sort of a journey of discovery, of learning, of growth. But generally this is quite playful, curious energy. So it's not a heavy energy. It's you know, even, and that's why I feel that this person is probably more of a projector than say like a manifesting generator or a manifester. That this person is curious and loves to learn. So they are probably one of those people who's an eternal student, who loves to sort of learn new things, but who likes to do so playfully and to kind of have fun with it, you know, not necessarily to be heavy about it. So kind of, you know, mercurial energy, in the sense that, you know, Mercury, if you think of the god Thoth, Hermes Thoth, you know, that there's this playful, slightly lighter energy to the way that they go about things, than, you know, than somebody who's got a heavy Saturn, for example. So I kind of feel as though this person, generally speaking, you know, that the upper chakras are important, or sort of emphasized in terms of their like their human design, and also that potentially that they may be more you know, like inclined to spiritual things, be interested in philosophy, possibly also in terms of Eastern things as well. But they are quite grounded, because, you know, even though the cobra is a fire sign in this deck, the snake essentially is somebody that, well, it's a creature that is chthonic, so it's very linked to the earth. So as I say, I find it interesting that we've got Capricorn and groundedness here, because if you think about Saturn, for example, in alchemy, it's often associated with like the snake or the dragon. And I've said this before, that for me the dragon is related to fire, so it's almost the sort of the higher vibration of the snake, which is very much associated with the earth. You know, it kind of crawls along in a horizontal line, whereas the dragon flies, you know, in the air. And I kind of feel that, you know, with the emphasis here on fire, that this person, you know, has probably been through a lot in their life, and, you know, so that they've had trials by fire, and it's made them kind of grow up and be very mature. But it also means that they've learned a lot, and that they have a lot of wisdom to kind of offer. So that may be important, you know, in this connection. But again, I find it interesting that we've got the journey and we've got sort of a bird here. So it does seem as though on some level travel or kind of progression is somehow important. Growth, progression, initiation seems to be, you know, important to this particular connection. But anyway, let's get into the tarot now and see what we can see. So I'm going to use the instead of my, Now let's see. Okay, so I'm going to use the solar deck today. I think last time I used the lunar deck, but today I'm going to use the solar playing card deck. And do another Celtic cross, and then we'll kind of clarify afterwards with, you know, with oracles and that kind of thing. So what is that? So that's interesting. So Three of Cups. So friendship might be important to this connection, but equally there may be like a third party energy that might be, and third party energy isn't always necessarily like another person as in a romantic option. It can sometimes just be about interference from third parties, or, you know, that somebody's work or obligations somehow, you know, mean that they can't devote all of their energy to a connection. So that might be relevant in this reading. Okay, so does that look straight? Yeah, I think. Okay. Gosh, my lens is so curved that everything looks skew when I'm laying it out. It's quite funny. Okay, let's put that there, and then I'm going to pull 2 cards for each person, and I'm going to assume that the butterfly is on the left and the cobra person's on the right. Oof, jumpy cards. Okay, so 1 card for the butterfly, 1 card for the cobra. Okay, let's put that away. Right, so let's start by having a look at the timeline just to see where things kind of are. Okay, that's interesting. So, I mean, first off, given that we've got that energy of gravity in the, you know, at the beginning of the reading, and we've got the 10 of Cups and the Wheel of Fortune here, I do feel as though these people probably are already in some kind of long-term commitment. So they may either be married or they may have been together for a long time with the 10 of Cups here. And this is the kind of, you know, the recent past. So, but then we've got the Knight of Swords here. So this is the Jack of Spades, and I kind of feel as though with the Tower here that something's happened in this connection recently, which has kind of knocked everybody for 6. It's like lightning struck the Tower. Some structure sort of came down. There was some kind of shock or like surprise event, and this has kind of led to maybe one or both parties reassessing the relationship, or, you know, there's been some kind of sudden and life-changing event that has kind of put a spanner in the works, or led to an awakening of some kind. You know, much like the midlife crisis does when you kind of in your mid-40s. That's when you have your your Uranus opposition. And very often, you know, it is associated with kind of wake-up calls or sudden realizations about, you know, time is running out. Maybe what I thought would make me happy isn't making me happy. We start to ask all sorts of questions about ourselves. Do we really feel we want to kind of conform in terms of society's norms and expectations? So it could be that you know, something like that has happened to this particular couple, and it's sort of, you know, and that is what has led to the butterfly person undergoing this huge transformation. And it could be something like, say, a death in that person's family, or somebody close to them. It could be that they've lost their job. They might have been involved in like like an accident or a natural disaster. Something has sort of provoked a crisis, and that it's caused possibly somebody to say something or to make a snap decision that's maybe a little bit impulsive and seemingly has kind of come out of the blue, but it's definitely sort of shaken up the energies. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, look, we've got death. Wow. So this is quite powerful. Yeah, so I do feel as though, change and sort of transformation is a very important theme for this couple at this time. So that Pluto transit between Pluto, Venus and Mars may be important, may be significant, in this particular connection. Because at the top of the reading is death. You can see the skull here, and of course, what's interesting about the death card is it's about death and rebirth. So you've got a lot of lilies here. You've got white flowers, and that's always associated with funerals, but also with this kind of transformation, this arising of the spirit, or of the person, like a phoenix, from the ashes. So I definitely feel as though the person who's probably undergone some kind of change is the butterfly person, and that's because they are represented here by not just the Two of Cups but also Temperance. So it could be that that they are undergoing some kind of healing or are in need of balance at the moment, because they've been kind of knocked for six by whatever this tower is. It may be, for example, that they've met somebody quite innocently, and there's been a sort of a thunderbolt moment, and it's made them kind of question their sort of their current commitment, and ask whether in fact this is the right person for them, or whether they've just kind of got comfortable. It could be that sort of a situation, because the Two of Cups can be about sort of soulmate connections. And what I find so interesting is that at the sort of grounding, at the root of the situation, similar to gravity and Capricorn, is the Knight of Pentacles, or the Jack of Diamonds. And this really speaks about sort of plodding along, about a connection where both parties are sincere and committed, and sort of like go through the motions, but one or both of them might lack a little bit of self-confidence, or be a little bit scared to sort of venture out of their comfort zone. They might quite like security, because they're a little bit like timid or afraid of change, and that could be why this kind of tower moment has sort of happened, is that one or both people kind of need to grow. Now it's interesting that the Cobra person gets the Eight of Wands. This is the Eight of Clubs, and this is all about communication and travel, things happening quite suddenly and swiftly. So this person may have been traveling, they may be thinking about traveling, or there might be a lot of backwards and forwards communication between these two people, maybe having discussions, kind of around whatever this event is, because the Jack of Spades, the Knight of Swords, is somebody who wants to communicate, who wants to sort of have their say, and there could be a little bit of pride involved, and a little bit of ego. It could be somebody's ego's been a little bit dented or wounded, because this also doubles up as the Six of Wands, and that can sometimes be somebody who's a little bit like overly concerned about what other people think, or a little bit like prideful, but not always. It can also be about overcoming difficult circumstances, and I mean, it's interesting that the immediate future card here is the Ten of Pentacles. So this is very balanced and very stable energy, so similar again to Capricorn and that gravity or groundedness card. So this talks about long-term commitment, but also community, and this is about a sort of a connection that has good long-term foundations, is built on something solid, and does have the potential to kind of go the distance, to sort of last. So I do feel as though whatever this couple is kind of currently undergoing, and I do feel as though it does involve some kind of healing after a shock, that these two people can, that they can pull through, that they can still come out the other side fine. Yeah, interesting. So with the Eight of Cups here and the Moon, I do feel as though whatever's happened as a result of this this kind of shock or this breakthrough moment, this aha moment, it has highlighted for one or both parties perhaps where they are a little bit disappointed, in the relationship, or feel that the relationship isn't giving them what they need. I do feel also as though one or both parties considered walking away at some point. So there may have been a third party involved. We will clarify. But I do think that at the moment there's a lot of confusion emotionally in the connection, and it could be that the lunar phases in March are important because, as I said, this is also the Moon card. So I just think that some fears or doubts might have kind of come up as a result of whatever this Tower moment kind of is or was, and that this will need to be kind of worked through, and that people shouldn't overreact or kind of make snap judgments or decisions, because I think that would, people would potentially act prematurely, So I think it's important to sort of cycle through this whatever this crisis is emotionally, so that the clouds clear and clarity kind of comes, because the next card along is the Six of Swords in reverse, and normally when it's upright it talks about moving out of stormy waters and into calmer waters. So it's usually about either the end of a relationship where both parties are tired of fighting and it's almost a relief when they get to the breakup stage, but it's also often about moving away from like tempestuous phases in a relationship and into calmer waters. And when it's in reverse, there does seem to be some kind of block or delay of some kind that is perhaps holding progress back, and it could be other people, because it is in the position of like people in your environment, your immediate environment. So it could be that people are meddling in the connection, like family or close friends. That might be important. We will get more information, but I think ultimately with the Five of Cups in reverse, in the kind of hopes and fears position, I do feel as though both people would be sorry if they did walk away from this connection, and that actually the worst is over. So even though they can't see it now, that they will be kind of that they will soon kind of, or they both want to sort of move away from, they don't want to lose each other is what I want to say, and that any sort of potential problem or sort of tempestuous event, I think, isn't necessarily enough to split these two people up. I think it's just a kind of a blip or like an obstacle that they have to overcome, that their transformation is necessary, and it might involve one or both of them kind of maybe spending a time apart from the other, going into retreat or something like that. With this Four of Swords here, there does seem to be a need to sort of heal some kind of wounding in the heart space, a psychological wounding, and this might be from childhood, or it might be, as I said, that this is some kind of difficult event that has kind of struck the other person, or or both parties as a result of one party being affected. But then the outcome is the Nine of Swords in reverse. So I think it's definitely saying not to overreact, that even though people might not be able to see clearly at the moment, that there might be a lot of murkiness or secrets, or just people not really speaking their truth or revealing everything, that a lot of it is sort of like mental fog and anxiety, and that really things aren't as bad as people think they are. I think that's what I would say about this particular card, that I think it's really a question of making a decision or a choice not to like let whatever this is spook people, especially if, you know, if this connection had a lot of potential, number one, you know, if it felt destined, or if these two people really felt as though they could see a future, or they are already committed to each other, because we do have these two tens on either side of the timeline, and you know, tens are about completion. It's also interesting that they break down to a 1, and we did have 19 associated with the Cobra person. So I do think that the Cobra person could probably see more clearly, you know, in terms of this connection, and that it's the butterfly person who might be going through some kind of like crisis and just needs to ride through it and kind of come out the other side without doing anything drastic or sort of prematurely. That's sort of my main feeling. But let's get a little bit of clarification here. First of all, with some tarot. So let's first of all clarify what this Tower moment is. This Tower moment that we've got here. Oh, I don't seem to be able to shuffle today. Okay, so let's see. Oh, interesting. So, yeah, Judgment. Yes. Yeah, so it definitely seems to be some kind of wake-up call here with Judgment, and it's led to some anxiety. It's led to like one or both people feeling as though they are kind of trapped, like in a mental prison that they can't get out of, and it's creating a lot of anxiety, and also potentially making one or both parties feel like a little bit weary or drained. So it may revolve around like a trust issue, for example, or it may simply be that, you know, in one person sort of freaking out, that it's made the other person feel like, oh, you know, once bitten, twice shy. I'm not sure, you know, if this is a good sign. So defenses kind of go up. But, you know, the 9 is also, even though it's the wounded warrior, we can see he's got a sort of a bandage around his head. The 9 is very close to the 10, so I think it does suggest that, you know, if both parties persist through this, that, you know, things can work out fine. Because if we look at the 8 here, we can see that this person feels trapped. They feel as though they've got swords all around them, and actually the swords are only towards their back. So if they took off their blindfold, they could walk out of this semicircle of swords, and, you know, without too much of a problem. So I think it's just about a perspective shift here, and I think it's interesting that we did have that emphasis on the crown and the third eye, you know, the head, at the beginning of the reading with that, you know, with this image here with the umbrella. So I do feel as though, you know, the Cobra person can probably offer the butterfly person some wise and considered advice, can see things maybe a little bit more clearly, and you know, and that if the butterfly person can just work through whatever this transformation is that has been like precipitated by the Tower, then they'll be fine. I think it's just a question of grounding, number one, you know, kind of getting good structure and routines sort of going, and also not, as I say, acting too hastily here with the, you know, because of the Knight of Pentacles. But let's just see what this moon, this 8 of Cups is. Because sometimes it can also be about a journey, you know, it can be about walking away from the 8 towards the 10, and of course to do that you need the 2. So I think it's interesting that we've got, you know, 8 plus 2 is 10 here. So, okay, let's see. Interesting, Knight of Swords again. So yeah, it's definitely not, don't make hasty decisions or speak out of turn. Wow, 10 of Cups again. Yeah, because you could potentially put the kibosh on something that's got a lot of potential here for long-term happiness. And I do often feel, you know, that there is this thing, okay, yes, be honest, but sometimes you can be too honest. You don't have to sort of share every thought with your partner, because once you say things, you can never take some things back, and, you know, some things are just hurtful. So, yeah, I don't always sort of buy this idea of like, yeah, interesting. So communication and travel do also seem to be important. So it could be also that, say, one person has been given an opportunity to like to relocate, perhaps maybe due to a job, or maybe they aren't really happy where they currently live. That could also be why we've got the 8 here. But I do feel like, you know, what it's really saying is that that this couple shouldn't let whatever has happened, you know, make them, you know, act too hastily and impulsively, or to speak out of turn. Because it does seem to me, you know, that with this 10, it's confirming the 10 here, that this connection does have a lot of potential, or there's already been a lot of investment in the connection, and that it would be a shame to sort of throw it away because of one setback. And that this situation can definitely progress forward through communication. It may also be that one or both parties need to be open to the idea of like traveling, or just being more kind of open to like adventure and spontaneity in the connection, rather than get too sort of like stuck in their ways, if you like, set in their ways. That might be important. And let's just see what this death is at the top. Just interested to know what this is. Okay, 9 of Pentacles. Whoops, wanted to come out. Wow, 10 of Pentacles. So another confirmation of this 10 here. So what is death here? You know, it could also be that the question of marriage or kind of long-term commitment has come up, and that one or both parties isn't sure about, you know, that particular label or whatever. That could also be the issue. Yeah, because we are talking about commitment, a decision here about a commitment. So I mean, maybe that maybe the Cobra person was going to propose, or did propose, or wanted to sort of take things to the next level with the butterfly person, and this kind of set off some panic for the butterfly person, who may have thought, well, maybe, you know, it's that they would like to keep these sort of their independence on some level, because the 9 is usually quite self-sufficient energy, and that to go to the 10 would involve, you know, a kind of a contract or a decision or a commitment, like a long-term sort of decision or commitment. So that might also be what has kind of sparked the crisis, you know, that there's some confusion about, you know, how they feel and whether they think that the connection is, you know, for them, whether this is sort of, whether they want to sort of, you know, limit their options and continue to stay in the partnership. But I mean, I do really feel as though, given that we've got these 2 10s here, that it is really reinforcing the idea that this relationship does have longevity potential here, and that it all it requires is a decision to commit and to find balance and to find, you know, equal give and take, like reciprocity in the connection, and you know, that this might involve like adult communication, really, and just sort of seeing things from a kind of a sensible, like grounded, practical perspective, rather than like panicking and then sort of like rushing off, or making a hasty decision that them, you know, that one or both people may come to regret. So I just think that this particular connection is all about a couple that essentially is fine, but may just have hit a kind of a hump of some kind in the transition to something more committed, and that really, you know, they can definitely work through this through communication, maybe by going away somewhere together. But I do feel very strongly that you know, this connection does have, you know, what it takes to sort of go the distance. So let's pull some advice now. So I'm going to pull one card for each person. Let's see. Interesting. Okay, so I think that fits quite nicely, actually. Yeah, I think that's absolutely perfect. So yes, definitely, I think with Between Worlds, this is, to me, it's confirming the idea of the butterfly person as being in transition. You can literally see that this flamingo is going from this sort of drab grey kind of side to full color, if you like, sort of full technicolor. And I mean, isn't it interesting that the bird is sort of bright pink like this bird is? So I do really feel, I mean, it's interesting, the gray as well. I do really feel as though this person, the butterfly person, is, you know, undergoing some important transition or transformation on a personal level. So they might be having a very important, like, transit, for example, and that this is only going to be to their benefit and to the benefit of the relationship. So even though it might feel a bit destabilizing short term, I do feel as though if they stay present and don't overreact, you know, or do anything hasty, that they can work through this fine. Because I mean, I think at first of all interesting that we've got a leg up for the cobra person. So I mean, you can see this is a baby bear kind of climbing on the back of his, you know, his mother, the polar bear, and this breaks down to a 7, which is the number of Saturn. So interesting that we had, you know, Capricorn at the beginning of the reading. So I do really feel as though the cobra person is willing to offer moral support to the butterfly person, and that they really feel like this can be worked through. You know, it's not necessarily a make or break scenario. So I think with this 32 breaking down to a 5, which is all about transition and change, that you know, even though the connection might be undergoing some form of change as a result of one party in particular being catalyzed into a kind of a growth spurt, that really, if they both stay present and don't think too much about the past, or kind of get anxious about the future, which is very much what the 9 of Swords can be about. You know, it can also be about guilt, you know, and that is very much associated with the past. And sort of make a balanced decision, you know, consider everything and then sort of make a kind of clear and balanced decision that that they can kind of come through this just fine. Okay, I think I'm going to get a Universe Has Your Back card, and then I'm also going to pull an angel card. I've got this angel guidance pack that I forgot that I had, so just get some final advice, and then I'll pull some name tiles before we close the reading out. Oh, that's beautiful. There is a stream of love supporting my dreams. Yeah, so I do really feel that. I do really feel that this couple do love each other, and that they have what it takes to kind of go the distance and to make each other happy. And you know, I think it's just important that one or both of them don't panic or do anything stupid. That they keep talking to each other, and that they see the potential that, you know, the two of them together are stronger than, you know, than sort of, you know, them being separate. So I think that's an important message here, that their combined strengths, you know, help them to sort of navigate the vicissitudes of life much more so than if they try to do everything alone, kind of thing. And I think, you know, this, if the butterfly person generally doesn't find it easy to ask for help or support, that's maybe part of their lesson, and that they might be surprised at how supportive, because I mean, we've got support here and we've got a leg up, which is all about giving support, moral support, advice, that kind of thing. And I think actually the Cobra person loves nothing better than to help other people and to offer support. And, you know, in the flip side, they can be a little bit of a know-it-all, but generally speaking, they get great, they feel as though that they are kind of making a difference if they can help in some way. So yeah, that might be, you know, like the nub of the issue is that the butterfly person tends to pull away or want to sort of deal with things on their own, and don't feel that they can ask for help. So they might be like a dismissive, avoidant attachment type, that kind of thing, where they tend to sort of pull away if they are not having a great time. Okay. Interesting. So Once you open and stretch your wings, you'll see feathers everywhere. So interesting, again, we got this bird imagery. Open your wings and be the angel that you can be. Sit with your eyes closed, breathe deeply and relax. Let go of any stresses and anxieties in your body. Visualize your guardian angel behind you with open hands poised over your shoulders. Imagine the warmth of loving energy coming from those healing hands. So this is really about like leaning on the sort of the strength and softness of your guides and of people who love you. And, you know, I do feel as though this is perhaps what the butterfly person is learning, is to sort of relax into the support, the loving support that is available to them if they ask and if they are open to it. So it's about being open to receiving love and support from others. And this might be an important lesson that they're kind of learning, you know, at this time. So that's quite a beautiful reading, actually. Let's just pull some name tasks before we finish. Right, so we've got an F, a V, a Z, an E, a G, an A, an X, and a D. So those may be important initials, or kind of spell out like an anagram or a word that's important to you. But, you know, just kind of take what resonates and leave the rest. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a really lovely reading, actually, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Do let me know in the comments if it's resonated, and yes, wishing you all the very best. I hope that Mars-Venus conjunction bodes well for you, and I hope to see you again on the channel really soon. Hi everyone, welcome to your reading. This is going to be your reading if you picked the pile that had calm on the top. So if this was your stone, then this is going to be your reading. But just to confirm, I'm going to be doing some like oracle cards now, just to determine the energies of each person in the connection as well as the connecting energy. So that should also give you a chance to make up your mind as to whether this reading is for you or not. And then if it isn't, just pick another pile. Okay, so I'm going to start with the connecting energies. So let's see what we've got. Okay, so this is very interesting energy. We've got card number 31, so that breaks down to a 4, and it's called depth or lake. And I mean, it's interesting. It makes me think of you know, like the lakes, the Lake District. There's also all those beautiful Great Lakes that you get in Scotland and in the fjords of kind of Norway, and also I think parts of like along the Danube, you know, kind of parts of Germany and Switzerland, that kind of thing. So that those may be important to your connection, but I think what it's kind of saying is that there's a lot going on below the surface, that there's a lot of depth to the situation. That potentially it's a little bit complicated. And there may also be, you may have trouble it's sort of expressing or communicating this. You know, it might be that one or both of you bottles things up and keeps things below the surface and kind of acts as though everything's all right, like with these spires here at the top, but actually below the surface, you know, maybe you aren't coping very well, or there's things that you don't really want the other person to know about you, that kind of thing. So there may be secrets or something that's hidden or not communicated in this connection that's causing a problem. And I do think that the conjunction between Venus, Mars and Pluto could be important, because that could coincide with some important revelations, you know, in terms of things that could either sort of help shine light on what the problem is, or potentially you know, mean that one or both parties you know, has a decision to make. And then we've got last quarter moon, which again is interesting. So this is the sort of the final, I suppose, the square between the sun and the moon before they come back together again for new moon. And it's very much associated with release, because of course the waning cycle of the moon, the waning phase, starts at full moon, and then gradually the moon becomes darker, you know, as we get close to new moon. And it's only when we get to the crescent, which is 2 days after the new moon actually, what we call new moon is actually the crescent, that, you know, that the cycle starts again. So last quarter moon is very much about release and about letting go. And as I say, I do feel as though there's something below the surface, whether it's subconscious beliefs or secrets or something that one or both people aren't saying, that is somehow holding or blocking the connection, and it might be time to let whatever that is go. I mean, it could be as well that the one or both of you are kind of at a pivot point where you're wondering whether to continue in the connection or not. You know, in which case it may be that, you know, you're considering walking away, but it may not necessarily be that. It may just be that there's some kind of clearing that needs to happen, of blocks and that kind of thing. But we will find out more when we get to the tarot. So let's look at the energies of each person. Interesting. Wow, a lot of bird imagery in this reading. We've got the phoenix with its feathers, we've got the owl, we've got like a bird, we've got a bird here in the cage in the Liberty card. So that's super interesting, given that this next Venus-Mars conjunction happens in an air sign in Aquarius. So that's it's quite fascinating, actually. It seems to have been a theme constellating since the Leo full moon, which was also the saving symbol, I think, was birdsong, and it linked back to August of 2021, you know, with birds of a feather flock together, which was the saving symbol then. So there may be a connection, or those dates may be important to this particular connection too. But let's start with the person on the right. We've got this phoenix energy, which in the Kim Grant's deck is all about the root chakra. So for her, it's a lot to do with release from karma and from blocks and from what might be kind of holding us back, so that the Kundalini energy can rise from the root sort of up towards the crown. So in a sense, it is about liberation, or kind of a letting go. So it's interesting that we've got last quarter moon here, and that we have the sense of depth of things being below the surface, sort of at the bottom. And of course, you know, Phoenix is essentially kind of, you know, it's the earth, it's the closest to the earth of all the chakras, and, you know, of the traditional ones anyway. And so there might be this connection to what's kind of below us or beneath us, or below the surface, that kind of thing. And with liberty, we have the strong sense again of being released from something that's been heavy or kind of weighing us down. It could well be that this Phoenix person has been struggling a little bit. Maybe, you know, they've been through a difficult time recently, that they've had struggles on some level. Often the root center has to do with either money or survival. So it can be about battling an illness, for example, ill health, or just maybe a lack of energy, because if the, you know, in human design, if the root isn't defined, it can mean that we've got very sporadic energy, and so we kind of tend to do things in spurts and then sort of collapse in a heap. But I do generally feel with this last quarter moon here that it's probably the Phoenix person who is currently battling their inner demons on some level, and who desperately wants to be free from something that they've either buried, maybe that they can't remember, maybe a trauma from earlier in their life, maybe it's a past life trauma or karma that they're kind of carrying with them that they are unaware of. But I do feel as though they are on some level in the midst of some sort of crisis, and that they really want to be free of whatever this burden is that's kind of weighing them down. So that's super interesting. And then we've got the owl, which is associated with the element of air. And I mean, it's interesting that we've got like a bird as the sort of the second card. So in the Kim Krantz system, the owl is associated with the I think it's the Hindu goddess Lakshmi. So she has to do with like wealth, beauty, and abundance. So that might be, it might be that this owl person is very attractive, maybe they are quite wealthy or successful. The owl is also associated with, I think, Artemis, so with moon goddesses in sort of Greek mythology. So that might also be important, given that we've got last quarter moon here. It might be that this person is like a night owl, or that their emotions fluctuate to the phases of the moon. Somehow the moon may be important for this owl person. But the owl, generally speaking, here is about how we make use of our gifts. So these could be natural attributes or assets that we have, such as, good looks, or it could be an artistic talent, or it could be that we're kind of born into wealth, or maybe this person won money, or somehow they've been quite lucky in that they feel quite blessed. This feels very Venusian almost in terms of sort of overall energies, whereas this has got a distinctly Mars feel to it, particularly like Mars in Scorpio. So it may be that this is the more feminine energy and this is the more masculine energy, but just take what resonates. And then with like a bird, which is a 22, interesting, which is a master number, it does seem to kind of emphasize feminine energy again. So this is like the double moon energy, if you like. But it's all about kind of taking off and focusing on the future. So I really feel as though this owl person is kind of very much focused on the future, kind of an optimistic person, someone who likes to get things done, who possibly has hopes for the connection, as far as things moving forward is concerned. But, it does seem as though in order for that to happen, that there needs to be some release, on the side of the Phoenix person, from whatever is holding them back, particularly, things that they keep below the surface emotionally, because of course this is a lake, it's water, it's very still water, and there's that saying, still waters run deep. So, this person may have strong water placements, particularly Scorpio, or it could simply be that water is important to them, or that they come from, as I say, one of those regions that I mentioned at the beginning of the reading. I mean, this is 3 + 1 is 4, so this is a 4, this is 22, and then we've got a 2 here. So it's interesting, 2 and 2 and 2, and of course we are in 2022. So this year seems to be important, and maybe the last quarter of the Leo full moon may be important in terms of timing for this connection as well. So that's also just something to kind of bear in mind. But let's get into the reading and see what we can discover with the tarot cards. So I'm going to use the solar playing cards deck this time. Last time I used the lunar. And we're going to do a Celtic cross spread. And then we'll pull 2 cards for each person, and we'll clarify with some oracle cards and pull some name tiles, and get some advice as well. Right. Okay. Okay, well, as we get through the reading, I will kind of pull these cards up so that you can see them. There isn't really enough room on my table. Maybe I should just push the table up a little bit. That's a bit better. Alright, so let's pull 2 cards for the 2 lunar cards for each person. This will be for the Owl person, and then this is going to be for the Phoenix person here. Alright, let's start with the timeline. Interesting. Okay. Oh, I know what I've done. I've forgotten to pull a... there's one card missing. So, I'm going to just put it there. Interesting. Okay, let's start with the timeline. So, in terms of what's kind of recently happened with this couple, I do feel as though there's been some kind of argument, and possibly one or both parties feel that they are kind of at a turning point in the relationship, a fork in the road, where they have to make a decision about whether they are willing to work on the connection, which is why we've got the Three of Pentacles here. Are they willing to work on the connection, or is it time to kind of walk away? And here the Six of Swords can be about walking away from a relationship, people splitting up, but equally it can be about moving away from a difficult phase in a relationship into calmer waters. Because if you look at the Six here, you can see that that this boat is moving towards what looks like the sunrise, essentially. So I feel as though these two people have been through a difficult time recently. They may have argued. It could also be that there was that one or both people had to choose between them and sort of this person or this relationship and another one. That may be a message for some of you. And now you're kind of at the point where something needs to be let go of in order for things to improve. And, that I think is where the last quarter moon kind of comes in. So there's some secret, or there's some niggly issue that the two of you have been kind of arguing about, whether you know exactly what it is or whether you just sense it. I do feel as though it's causing like a power struggle or some kind of difference in the connection, and so a decision needs to be made in order to move forward. And with the Fool here, there's a sense of, well, are we going to kind of take a leap of faith? Are we going to press the reset button and start again, or is it time for something entirely new? And I think that's kind of the question that needs to be answered as we move through the reading. Interesting. So Three of Wands and the Nine of Pentacles / the Hermit. Interesting. So I find it fascinating that the Owl person is represented by the Queen of Wands. So this is double emphasis on beauty and on kind of good looks with the Owl person. So I do feel as though this person is very attractive, and that maybe they attract a lot of attention, like sometimes unwanted attention, and that this could be a problem for the Phoenix person. It could be that what they are working through is jealousy or possessiveness. That could be the issue that's kind of at the kind of the crux of the matter. And when it comes to things like jealousy, so often it's a very primitive emotion. Some people think it's actually linked to evolution, and in terms of particularly male sexual jealousy, that this element of not wanting somebody else to kind of for their sort of gene pool not to be infected by somebody else's. In other words, they don't want to look after somebody else's children. They want to know that that if they sort of get a female pregnant, that this is their sort of seed that they are then sort of providing for. So that's on a very primitive level, and that could explain why we're talking about the root chakra here. That this is sort of quite a fundamental, quite a sort of a primitive issue, kind of at root, if you like. So it may be something that's quite difficult to work through as a result of that. That it's because we often find it difficult to admit to ourselves that we sort of, in this day and age, that we are susceptible to those kinds of like primitive emotions, the things that get activated in our limbic system. But that does seem to be potentially the issue here, particularly since the Phoenix person is represented by the King of Pentacles, the King of Diamonds, and this is earth energy. So this is somebody who's very rooted in the 3D, in material security and abundance and success. So again, emphasizing that root center, that chakra that we were talking about with the Phoenix card. This person, may have kind of got to a certain level of success in terms of their career, But it may be that this has come at the expense of emotional or psychological development, that they've had to put everything into like building a business or being successful, into a job, that kind of thing. And it may be now that there's a need for them to sort of work on the connection, and this is what is causing tension, in the connection. I mean, the joining energy is the Three of Wands, which is generally very positive. You can see we've got a kind of a teepee here, and then at the bottom we've got all sorts of tools, and the idea being that the two of you kind of work together to build a bright future. We can see the sun, kind of in the background here. So it's generally a kind of an optimistic card, and it does seem as though both people had high hopes for the connection, or do have high hopes in terms of where it can kind of go. But in order for this to sort of happen, there needs to be a kind of a progression forward, out of this this potential power struggle and into more of a kind of cooperative energy, in order to sort of move things forward. And then at the top, which is kind of future energy, or sort of sometimes it's kind of advice, what you need to sort of pivot towards is the Nine of Pentacles, which is also the Hermit card. So it could be on some level that there's an issue here around sort of financial self-sufficiency, or just like moving away from any kind of codependency. The Nine of Pentacles is, generally speaking, somebody who's quite self-sufficient and who's able to kind of self-soothe in situations, who's not needy. And it could be that quality needs to be cultivated, in the connection. It could also be that with the Hermit here, that one or both people need time alone in order to sort of recharge. So it could be, for example, that the King of Pentacles, the Phoenix person, has quite a stressful job, and they may need time to sort of decompress alone before they can kind of connect to the Owl person. I mean, the Queen of Wands is a very confident person and also quite creative and entrepreneurial, but she can demand a certain level of like admiration from others. So it could be that is also a bit of an issue. But I do feel like it's more to do with the fact that there may be sort of jealousy in the connection, and that one or both parties could do with connecting to their inner guidance, in order to like work through that issue. Let's see what else we've got here. Okay, so the Eight of Wands in reverse. So this is also interesting. It does point to the fact that there's a lack of communication, of honest communication in the connection, and I think this does speak to that, this depth that we had earlier, that one or both people may be afraid to speak up and sort of say what they really feel, because they're kind of concerned that maybe they feel shame around something, or they think that they might be rejected by the other person, or criticized, or abandoned, that kind of thing. But I do think that it's important, in order for this connection to progress, for there to be more kind of honest dialogue, and that might kind of come about, as I said, as a result of that conjunction between Venus, Mars and Pluto, which does tend to sort of bring what's below the surface or hidden to the surface. So that could be an important time astrologically. Interesting. So in the sort of the immediate environment is the Knight of Wands, and this is often somebody who's a bit of a charmer or a player. So as I say, I do feel as though it's possible that there is third party energy in the situation, in the sense that I do feel like the Queen of Wands attracts attention, sometimes unwanted. It may not be that they consciously do it, or that they even want it, but I do feel as though there is an issue here around male attention from kind of admirers in sort of the immediate environment, and this may make the King of Pentacles person feel a little bit insecure. So it may be also that there's an age difference between these two people. Maybe the King of Pentacles is slightly older than the Queen of Wands, but I do see this as player energy. So I do feel as though potentially what's been unspoken is that the King of Pentacles might feel bothered by some of the attention that the Queen of Wands gets. Yeah, it's interesting, because it does look to me with the Ten of, this is the Ten of Cups, and it's also the Wheel of Fortune, and then the Knight of Cups, that these two people do have high hopes for the connection, that they do think that it could bring them long-term happiness, that it's on some level it's meant to be, with the Wheel of Fortune. There's a sense of destiny playing a hand in things. And then with the Knight of Cups, this is very much about kind of romantic proposals, and being quite sort of like chivalrous, and yeah, and romantic essentially. So it may be that that the Queen of Wands likes to be wooed. Maybe she has these particular ideas about how she should be treated, because she's, as I say, she often knows what she wants. She's very confident, and it could be that I mean, maybe these two you know, are kind of, maybe that they are right at the beginning of an association or a relationship. Maybe there's potential here, but it hasn't really been fully realized, and it's because the King of Pentacles hasn't made a romantic offer, a romantic proposal yet, and the Queen of Wands might be waiting for them to do that. But what might be holding them back from taking this sort of leap of faith is you know, a lack of self-confidence, or sort of an ego dent as a result of as I say, unwanted attention from other men, or other sort of parties, other suitors or admirers towards this Queen of Wands. So that might be the root of the issue that needs to be released in order for the things to sort of move forward. But let's find out more by pulling some tarot cards. So let's move that up a little bit. And let's find out first of all what this Two of Wands is all about here, because this seems to be the kind of crux of the matter. Okay, that wants to come out. Yeah, not opening up, which fits with this idea of depth. So I do really feel as though one of both parties is too afraid to speak up, or kind of open up, reveal their insecurities or their fears or worries or what they want, and that this could be part of the problem. It causes resentment, and then maybe these two blow up. Like, oh wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is super interesting. We're getting a repeats of cards, which we did in the first reading too. So again, there's this interesting sort of theme in the readings that is kind of coming through. So we've got the Three of Wands again, which echoes the Three of Wands down here. We've also got the Ten of Cups, which echoes the Ten of Cups here. But so it does look as though, as I say, that there is a lot of potential in this connection, and that both people do, it kind of confirms these two cards at the top, that both people do see a future, a bright future for this connection. They want things to move forward, and that they would like it to evolve into some form of long-term commitment or happiness. So, I mean, that's really positive. But what's stopping the connection from moving forward is this Four of Pentacles in reverse, which is, when it's in the upright, it tends to be about people that kind of hold on or kind of are closed. You can see this man has got a pentacle over his heart, and so it tends to produce a kind of like a miserly energy, someone who withholds. So when it's in reverse, what it's calling for is the opposite of that. So a kind of an opening up, a release, and a kind of like a letting go. Like, in order to let things flow, there needs to be this sort of relaxing a little and sort of dropping of boundaries, you know, in order for things to kind of move forward. So I do feel like communication, poor communication, is really the root of the matter here. But let's clarify further. Let's find out more about this Nine of Pentacles energy at the top. So what is this Nine of Pentacles / Hermit energy? Okay, those want to come out, those three cards. Interesting. So it seems to be about kind of getting clear about, you know, what one or both parties want. So this is kind of this wake-up call. There's a kind of clarity, seeing things very clearly, and also communicating clearly. The Ace of Wands is about kind of cutting through any BS or confusion about, you know, how they really feel about the other person with the Two of Cups here. That I think both of these people really care about each other, but they may be too afraid to sort of open up or to communicate properly, and that's what's causing like tension or resentment or kind of a build up of like energy in the connection that then leads to sort of like a blowing up every now and again. That's, yeah, so that's really clear. And let's find out a little bit about this Fool energy. Okay, that wants to come out. Seven of Wands. So this can also be about lowering defenses or about being willing to fight for the connection. Interesting. Ace of Wands. Fresh start. Oh, okay, that wants to come out. I'm going to take both of those. Interesting. So, yeah, I mean, it does look as though, like both people want a fresh start with the Ace of Wands. This is very similar to the Fool energy. It's, you know, it's fire, it's the element of fire. It's about fresh starts. It's associated with summer, and it's quite passionate energy. So it sort of matches the Queen of Wands here. But in order for this to happen, there seems to be a need for a breakthrough with the Tower here. You know, the Tower is very often about breaking through negative belief patterns or ways of doing things that might not be working. It's also, I mean, planet-wise, it's associated with Mars. So, you know, as I say, the Mars-Venus transits may be pivotal in sort of creating a breakthrough, if you like, in the connection. And this requires, I think, both people to put their defenses down and to also admit that they are kind of willing to work on things. You know, it's similar to this Three of Pentacles here, which is all about being committed to sort of doing the work, to building something together. And a kind of a leveling up. You know, it's interesting, again, the Emperor is ruled by Aries, which is also associated with the Fool. So it seems to involve a decision to sort of like take control, to level up, to like to make things happen. And I think, you know, if we consider the energy of the Phoenix, it may be that part of this breakthrough involves moving past whatever this baggage is, this karma or this baggage that may be holding the Phoenix person back, that this will lead to a massive breakthrough in the connection, and a kind of a leveling up that will really sort of drive things forward, allow both people to really build something quite solid. So that looks very positive, actually. Let's get some advice now from, first of all, the wisdom of the Oracle. Oops. Okay, I'm going to take those three. Yes. Wow. I mean, you can't make this up. So, yeah, I mean, this just confirms to me what we saw right at the beginning of the reading with this orphaned card. I do really feel as though the main issue in this particular relationship connection is that one person feels abandoned or rejected as a result of an insecurity or something that's happened to them in maybe when they were a child, something to do with like a core wound or trauma that they may have buried and they may not necessarily be aware of it. It could be childhood neglect or some kind of abuse, or even just peers rejecting them, you know, sort of at school, and that in any form of jealousy or competition may sort of trigger this in them, that it makes them feel insecure and like they want to pull back and sort of hide or like pull away from the connection, or that they just feel very hurt and abandoned and kind of wounded, and that the way to sort of deal with this is through communication. So the message in a bottle here for the Queen of Wands, that it does seem to need some kind of discussion, you know, that this Eight of Wands energy needs to be moved into the upright position so that things can kind of move forward. So a real need to kind of open up on both sides and and to talk. And it may be that, you know, if both people are not currently talking to each other, that it's up to the Queen of Wands person to reach out to the King of Pentacles and sort of start a dialogue, and that this will sort of move things forward quite nicely, because at the root of the situation is a need for intimacy, to open up and to be willing to allow somebody to come closer, and to let someone in, to allow yourself to be vulnerable, so that you know, intimacy can develop. So that's a very, very clear message. Now let's get some advice from the Universal back deck. Okay, so that fell out. I'm going to take it. Oops. So this says, the moment I embrace my peace within and surrender the outcome is the moment that the universe can truly get to work. So that might also be part of this, the message of the Four of Pentacles in reverse, and also that last quarter that we saw, that there's this need to embrace, to surrender, to give something up, to let go. And that could just be about letting go of control, which can sometimes come from a fear, you know, of being hurt or abandoned, that kind of thing. So a strong message of surrender into peace, and very often this is about letting go of the outcome, you know, of expectations about the outcome, and actually just sort of like, you know, doing the work, opening up, seeing where things lead, and that from that comes a sort of a trust and a restoration of faith, and then things start to move forward quite nicely. So that's quite beautiful. Let's get some angel advice from this angel guidance deck that I discovered in amongst my things. I'd totally forgotten that I had it, and I thought, well, let's give it a whirl. Okay. So this is one of the Angels in Action cards, and it says, children believe in angels and the feelings are mutual. So it talks, I suppose it's about that kind of childhood faith that we have, that trust that things will kind of work out, which I think does speak to this, the moment I embrace my peace and surrender. So it says, Ben, age 4, had been sad since his dad had gone away. He hadn't eaten well, couldn't sleep, and refused to play with his toys. So there may be something in this for the orphaned person. They may have had a parent like abandon them. His mother Sue was beside herself with worry for her son and herself, but had read about the help of angels and came to find out more. In the week prior to her consultation, Ben came down from his room one evening and said, "Mummy, there is a shiny lady in my room all dressed in white who knows who I am. I don't know what she wants, but she keeps smiling and talking to me. Mummy, she is so beautiful." Following the visit of the beautiful white lady, Ben became his normal happy self again, playing, eating, and sleeping like a healthy boy. So it says, do we need to return to innocence to see the angels for ourselves? And I think to an extent this may be what is required in this connection. You know, coming to the edge does require a certain innocence, a sort of an opening up, a kind of a willingness to be seen, and to, you know, to allow the sort of others to love us, and the universe to go to work for us. So yes, I think that's quite a beautiful message, actually, and one that may well be relevant, particularly to the Phoenix person. So let's just end off with a couple of name tiles. So we've got a V, an L, a G, a U, Z, whoops, M, E, another E, a B, an H, and a C. So those may be relevant to your connection. Maybe initials of somebody. Yeah, but just, you know, take what resonates and these are kind of group readings, so just take what resonates and leave the rest. But anyway, I hope you found that reading helpful, and that it has helped in some way. Yes, do let us know in the comments if it has resonated, and always appreciate your likes, shares and subscribes. But I'm wishing you all the very best for this upcoming, period with the Venus-Mars conjunctions. I hope they bring lots of resolution, peace and love your way, and sending you lots and lots of love. Hello Pile 3, welcome to your reading. So this is going to be your reading if you pick the love stone. But what we're going to do first, just to make sure that this is your pile, is we're going to have a look at the two energies of the people involved in the connection, as well as the connecting energy. And that will just help you to confirm whether this is your reading or not. Don't worry too much if it isn't. Just go back and pick another pile. And yes, Spirit does want to connect with you today. So just, hang in there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the connecting energy first. Then we're going to look at both parties in the connection. And then we'll move on to the tarot and the oracles and name tiles, that kind of things, just to see what other information we can get. So let's start with the connecting energy. Interesting. So I think that this ninth house card came out in the last set of Mars Venus readings that I did. So it could be that there's a connection to one of the readings in my previous video. But together with the equator, first of all, I think travel may be important, or maybe that these two people are somehow separated by, by distance, by water, that kind of thing. So it could be that they live in different continents, maybe different climatic zones, especially with the equator here. The ninth house is also about foreign travel. So it could be that these two people are from different backgrounds. We get this strong contrast between kind of light and dark in this reading, in this card, and that they maybe need to somehow find a middle ground with the equator here to make equal. So there may be different belief systems here, maybe, as I say, different cultural backgrounds that somehow is important to the connection, or that is a feature of the connection. It could also be that there may be some, this is a number 5. So it could well be that like one or both parties tends to see things in black and white, that they are just very black and white in their thinking, and it may be that there's a need for compromise here. So, but we'll find out more as we go along, in the reading. Interesting colors. So we've got quite a strong contrast in terms of colors here, much like this equator card. That's quite interesting. So we've got a lot of red on this side, and we've got a lot of blue on this side. So these people might be quite different. It might be a case of opposites attract. I've got a sense here of, even though we are talking about earth and water energy, which is compatible, these two cards to me, the sort of the red and the blue, speak of fire and water to me. So it could be that this person may have strong fire placements, and this person may have strong water placements. And it's echoed here too in terms of the yellow and then again the sort of the blue as well. But let's start with the elk person. So the elk energy is very much associated with masculine energy in the animal spirit deck. And this is about somebody who is considered to be an elder, or kind of someone who is in a position of authority, either within their community, their family, or within their within their relationship. So they tend to be quite strong. They tend to be somebody who's not afraid of taking on commitment, or doing kind of difficult things. Sometimes they can sort of move into headstrong energy, so they can sometimes butt heads with people, literally with the sort of the reindeer, the horns here. And there may be a need for grounding. It may be that they move more into sort of fire energy and need to be earthed again. So that may be important. It may be that they've got, as I say, some kind of fire placements that clash with their earth placements. So we're talking here about, you know, Leo, Sagittarius, and Aries for fire, and Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn for earth. But I think this is somebody who likes to lead, somebody who likes to initiate, somebody who's also quite stable and consistent. This is quite solid energy. So somebody that you can definitely rely on. You know, if they remind me a lot of the King of Pentacles energy in the tarot. So it'll be interesting to see if that comes up. But then with Red Garden, we've got a strong emphasis again on color red here, which you can see in the sun. And this is all about, I mean, traditionally, this is supposed to be a card about like happiness and like abundance and satisfaction. You know, there's a lot of green and red in this card. I mean, for me, it sort of speaks of the potential of new life. You know, it feels very fecund and fertile. I get a strong sense of that with this elk person. That this is somebody who is very good at making things grow or expand. They have a kind of an abundant energy about them. Very, very fertile. I get a very sort of Martian feel from this elk energy. So I do feel that whatever they put their mind to, they sort of inject with life force energy, and that things tend to sort of take off and kind of happen. And I do feel that this person has a lot to offer, you know, the elk. It might just be that sometimes they are a little bit headstrong or stubborn, or kind of set in their ways, or just think that their way is the right way. So again, like a bit like the Emperor, you know, in the tarot as well. It could be an element of that. And then when we move over to the whale person, we get a very different feeling here. So this is somebody who is most definitely an empath, or somebody who is sensitive and intuitive, maybe an HSP, like a highly sensitive person. So this is somebody who's got a lot of empathy. You can see, you know, there's a lot of roots kind of coming out of her hair. She's very much in tune with her environment and with everything around her. So there's a high degree of empathy. Very good listener with listen here. And with I mean, whale energy as well is also, I think it's one of the last of the water animals in the sort of animal spirit deck. So this is somebody who is very at home with emotions, who has a high degree of compassion, who's very sensitive and kind, and who may be quite a gentle soul. You know, I get a strong sort of Pisces energy here, but with earth placements too. You know, given, you know, all this you know, this energy of the person in their hair. So very, very different people. And I kind of feel as though the elk person maybe potentially get a little bit impatient with the whale person. Maybe the whale person doesn't always sort of speak up, and maybe can take things personally or to heart. Maybe doesn't have good boundaries either, because, you know, empaths very often don't. So the elk person might be the more dominant like person in the connection, and there may be a need for more balance, and that's why we've got the equator here. That maybe the elk person is quite opinionated, or likes to impose their values, ideas, or beliefs on others, and it could be that the whale person is quite easygoing. You know, that they don't seem to be somebody that likes a lot of conflict, and they seem more passive than the elk person. So it could be that the elk person tends to sort of ride roughshod, or just be a bit domineering, as I say, and it could be that there's a need for more balance in that in the connection here. Oceans may also be important. I'm getting a strong element of, as I say, that there could be oceans separating these two people, but we'll find out more, you know, in the tarot. Let's do that next. So I'm using the solar playing card system this time, just for a change, and I'm going to do a Celtic cross spread just to sort of get an insight into what's been happening, where things might be going, and then I'll pull some cards for each person as well, and we will clarify, and then get some advice from the oracle cards, and we'll finish up with some name tiles. Right, so let us see what is going on. Actually, let's move this over a little bit. I forgot. 6. Oh, it's amazing how skewed this looks in the camera, and it's dead straight on the board. It's hilarious. Okay. Right, so, whoops. Okay, oh, alright, those two want to come out. So I'm going to take that for the elk person, and this for the whale person. So let's see what's been going on. Interesting. Wow, a lot of 5s in this reading. Okay. Yeah, okay. Very, very interesting. So in terms of timeline, I really kind of feel as though there definitely is a need for like balance in terms of like give and take and fairness in this connection, because the immediate past energy is the 5 of Pentacles the 5 of Swords in reverse, and this speaks about the need to let go of like pride, ego, like game playing, mind games, that kind of thing. Sometimes it can be things like gaslighting, but it's generally not really very nice behavior. Because in the immediate sort of in the present energy, we've got the 2 of Swords in reverse and the Hangman also. This doubles up as the Hangman. So I kind of feel as though there's been a realization or a perspective shift. Something has come to light. It could be that in the past one person felt bullied by the other one. I do feel strongly that it was probably the whale being potentially dominated or bullied by the elk person. And that there's been this sort of realization, this aha moment that's led to a perspective shift, and now requires a decision, like what to do next. And with the 5 of Cups in reverse as the sort of crossing energy, it seems as though the whale person may be sort of wondering whether they may have walked away from this person as a result. They may have felt that the other person was abusive or toxic on some level, and this has led to a degree of regret. Or it could be that that maybe sort of one or both parties thought that the situation was worse than it was, and that there's a desire now to sort of come out of those feelings of like loss and grief that are often associated with separation. So it could really be that these two people are in separation, or kind of didn't come together for some reason. And as I say, it does seem to me as though it had to do with like harsh words or potentially mind games, that kind of thing. Let's have a look at interesting. Yes, so I mean this to me, this just kind of confirms the scenario. So we've got the 2 of Wands here with the elk person. So it could be that the elk person comes from quite a big family or a background where there's where there's a sort of a fiery culture of like arguing and people being very opinionated and that kind of thing. So say like a Mediterranean, like a Italian family or a Greek family, something like that, where there's a lot of like banter and where people tend to be quite fiery, and that it's not necessarily seen as a bad thing, and that it makes the elk person potentially a little bit confrontational and sometimes argumentative. And this could be where the 5 of Swords energy is kind of coming from. But what I didn't realize is that it actually makes the whale person feel quite stressed, because the whale person is very sensitive. They may have come from a more introverted family, or from a background that was a lot more reserved, on some level. So maybe someone who's got a sort of a Calvinist background, or much more of a conservative background, where people don't really speak up, where there's much more of a hierarchical structure in the family, that kind of thing. And this may have been what drew them to the L person in the first place, because the L person does seem to be quite strong and can do. So it may be that the whale person was drawn to the L person because that's what they are used to in terms of a partner. That's what they're looking for in terms of a partner, someone who's quite take charge, but not realizing that if they are very sensitive and empathic, that they might have found this sort of fiery behavior a little bit too much for them, that it was sort of too much for their nerves, or they may just have felt a little bit bullied, or that the L person was a bit insensitive in terms of their needs. So it could be that this person talks more and this person listens, and there needs to be more of a balance, and that's why we've got that equator energy in the mix, that there's a need to make things more equal in terms of yin and yang. So as I say, there may have been some kind of separation, and this may have led to sleepless nights, possibly a bit of guilt on the part of the elk person, and possibly some regret on the part of the whale person. I feel like there's a sense of like missing the other person and wanting to for things to improve, for to kind of come out of this feeling of like loss and separation and that kind of thing. Let's see what else is happening. Yeah, interesting. So at the top of the reading, we've got the Ace of Pentacles, which also doubles up as the World. So this is about endings and beginnings. So cycle endings and then new beginnings. And it does seem as though these two people are definitely at a kind of a pivot point, where they either choose to end an old cycle that perhaps was a little bit toxic and start fresh, in which case there needs to be, I think, a definitive gesture, possibly on the part of the elk person, to say that they are sorry and that they want to do better, etc., etc. So something substantial to sort of show that they want to change, or that they want things to improve, or there needs to be a kind of an ending of some kind here. And with the whale person being represented by the 10 here, sometimes that can be the end of a cycle and the start of a new cycle. So let's see what else is going on. Interesting. Another 10. Yeah, so I kind of equate this, it's kind of similar to the root energy. It kind of tells us what's at the root of the matter, but that one or both parties may not be admitting. And if we combine it with the Knight of Pentacles here, the Jack of Diamonds, I think there's a sense here that that pride, or sort of like an inability to admit like weakness, or like not knowing everything, or fault, like maybe a bit of a problem or an issue here. But at root it's due to low self-confidence. Very often the Knight of Pentacles is actually quite a sweet and sincere person, but there might be a little bit of what's the word? They might have a lot of bluster and find it difficult to admit weakness, and that may be, as I say, because of their background, where any kind of vulnerability is seen as a weakness. But the Hierophant here, this is the 5 of Pentacles and the Hierophant. It could be, as I say, that one or both people have walked away from the connection, and that there's a sense of abandonment or rejection, and that could be why we've got this energy of the 5 of Cups here. But it could also be to do with like conforming or to society's expectations. Sometimes it can be about commitment, but I mean there are a lot of 5s in this reading, and I do think that's significant. 5s and 2s actually. So 5 is change, and 2 is of course about like coming together with others, so making a decision or a choice. So I do feel like at root, the energies of Venus and Mars, with that new moon energy, and also with the conjunction to Pluto, maybe about like needing to make decisions about how to move forward, and either into a new cycle with somebody else, or a way to sort of like press the reset button in this connection. So I feel like it's kind of make or break for these two people. Now when we look at the immediate environment, it's interesting because we get the exact same card as we do for the whale person. So it's the 10 of Wands again, and this talks about stress, overwhelm, and just feeling burdened. So as I say, I do feel as though a lot of people who know the couple do sympathize with the whale person. They may feel that the whale person has to sort of maybe put up with a lot, or is just very long suffering, or just a very like a giving person, and that this is creating stress and burden for the whale person, and that there's a need for change in the situation, a need for healing as well. Because if we look here, we see in the hopes and fears position, we get the star, which is also the 7 of Pentacles. So I do feel as though both people do want to heal the connection, and they do want to potentially invest in it, but this is going to require, as I say, like a substantial change in the connection. First of all, here with the world, so the end of a cycle, and then secondly, we've got at the top, we've got death. This is the death and the 4 of Swords. So in order for things to heal in this connection, I feel as though something has to change, something has to give. Death is all about kind of transformation, and I think at root, what needs to change is maybe the way that the one person relates to the other. Maybe there's a need to kind of relearn how to relate to other people in a way that is healthier and maybe a bit less aggressive. And that this could really sort of move things forward. But also equally, I think, when it comes to, this is something that a lot of empaths, I think, have to sort of learn, is they also have to take responsibility and not be a victim. And sometimes that also means learning how to say no, learning how to assert your needs, not expecting people to sort of guess what it is that you need. And also sort of realizing that you don't kind of give to get. So not being sort of a martyr, like only learning to negotiate and say, well, if I give this, will you give that? And I need compromise in this situation, or I need you to sort of step up in this way, and not just allow, like expect everything to come from the other party. There also needs to be boundaries and things put up. And I think, particularly with Pisces people and with that kind of whale energy, that boundaries might be an issue here. But let's get some more information with the tarot. I mean, it is interesting that we are currently in Pisces season, and that does tend to bring up issues around boundaries. Pisces is ruled by Neptune, and Neptune does tend to dissolve boundaries. It can make us a little bit too easygoing, too forgiving, sometimes too compassionate, and sometimes we need to have compassion for ourselves as well as others. So, I think this is interesting timing here, astrologically. But let's find out more about this 5 of Swords energy. What is this 5 of Swords energy? What's kind of happened in the recent past? Interesting. So 2 kings here, which is masculine energy, and then we've got this 9 of Pentacles. So it does seem as though potentially, like one of the bones of contention was whether or not to be single, and also how independent each person was. Because with the 9 of Pentacles for me is always about being self-contained or self-sufficient. And even in a relationship, one also needs to sort of be able to do things on one's own, or kind of self-soothe emotionally, and not necessarily be overly dependent on the other person in order to sort of get all your emotional needs met. You also need to be able to sort of do things separately. And so what may have been an issue is whether or not to sort of take things forward, to take things to the next level of commitment here with this Hierophant. And again with the King of Wands, this is also Aries energy, it's fire energy, and I do get the sense that this is the behavior of the elk person who maybe they may tend to sort of alternate or vacillate between being very like take charge and, as I say, like quite fiery and effusive and expressive on the one hand, and then move into sort of energy that can be a little bit more like cutting or cold or withdrawn. So they may tend to sort of oscillate between these two extremes, if you like, and this can potentially be a little bit triggering or hurtful to someone like a whale person who may get confused. They may not understand why the person is so fiery one minute and then so cold the next. So this does seem to speak about like bad habits in terms of behavior that might have been picked up by the elk person, which need to be sort of worked through. And part of that might be impatience. You know, we did have that like a bird energy, which is very future focused, forward focused, and so is the King of Wands. The King of Wands likes to get things done, and sometimes that can lead to impatience, and then in turn can lead to sort of cutting words. So it may just be that these two need to have a conversation about expectations and about the way things get done, because it may be that they have very different ways of going about things, and that's the fundamental like difference sort of that lies at the heart of the connection. But let's also look at the I think let's look at this Hangman in reverse to sort of see, because it does seem as though there's been a realization which has helped one or both parties to get unstuck or unblocked and make a decision or see things more clearly. So what is this Two of Swords in reverse, this Hangman in reverse? Some kind of aha moment. Perspective shift about what needs to change in the connection. Oh, interesting. Yeah, so it does look as though there has been some kind of like aha moment, and it's been precipitated by a feeling of being drained. And you know, if we think that this is the 9 and we've got the 10 here, I do feel as though the whale person kind of finally shot their bolt. They kind of got to a point where they were like, I can't do this anymore. I feel so tired and drained. It's led to like an aha moment or realization, this judgment call, this decision, and this has kind of flipped maybe the power balance. So that may be why we've got the equator. It may be that they have then made a decision to sort of walk away or say, no, I've had enough, and that this has led to some kind of flip in the situation, which potentially is going to take them out of feelings of you know, kind of, as I say, feeling loss, grief, sadness, anxiety, that kind of thing, and into much more of a kind of like an empowered energy here with the 6 of Wands, because this is overcoming problems or conflict. I mean, it can sometimes be a little bit like pompous or egotistical. So, you know, it could also be that like pride is an issue in this relationship, that there's a secret power struggle going on. And sometimes, you know, if you're not somebody who's very assertive, you can be a little bit passive aggressive. So there is the potential for that. But I think both people realizing, having like an aha moment about like their bad habits and what needs to change in order to overcome problems. So that's a really positive sign. I think let's look next at death here. So what needs to change in the connection in order for there to be healing and for things to improve, basically. Oopsie, I think that's too many cards. What is death on the 4 of Swords in this connection? So interesting. The themes have kind of run right through these readings. So it looks to me as though in order for things to improve or change, first of all, there needs to be a sort of like an unclenching, so a release of some kind, letting go of control, of the need to control, and like of holding on too tightly to a position or a way of doing things, not being so stubborn. And then there needs to be some communication with the Eight of Wands, and that this will help to sort of drive things forward. It will, first of all, provide reassurance to two people that I do think, with, you know, because we've got a repeat of this Knight of Pentacles energy, which is the root of the reading. So the root of the problem does seem to be a lack of confidence, a lack of self-confidence, and that this is manifesting in terms of like coping behaviors that aren't necessarily very healthy on both sides. So I do think a dialogue, a conversation needs to happen. Both people need to sort of open up more and be willing to compromise, and this will, I think, show like what is needed to drive the connection forward in a sort of a pragmatic and consistent way. So I do think there's hope for the connection. I just think it's a question of both people kind of letting go of bad habits and of learning new ways of communicating or of relating that are going to bring about a more equal partnership, and something that's a lot healthier. So let's get some advice next from the wisdom of the oracle. Yeah, I mean, so many of the readings have been about like letting go a little bit, sort of like relaxing, and communication's been a huge theme in this reading. So that's really interesting, that it's come through with all the readings. And I mean, we do tend to sort of underestimate how important it is in connections, because you can really work through anything if you can talk to each other in a nice way and, you know, constructive way. Right, so one card for the elk person, one for the whale, and then one for the connecting energy. Interesting. Okay, change in the wind. So I think really, I mean, let's start with the elk person. So we've got yang energy, which I think fits quite nicely with that solar energy that we saw in the elk person, that quite masculine energy. That I think, you know, one of the plus sides about that kind of elk energy, that yang energy, is that they will, if they see that there is a problem and they know what the problem is, they will take swift action to remedy it. So I think it's kind of saying that the elk person is willing to do what it takes to fix things. So that's a really positive, and I think echoes this King of Wands energy. So they do want to fix things. They don't want to kind of give up. And then on the side of the whale person, I think really what it's saying here with the milk and honey, which breaks down to a 6. So this is 1, this is 6. So this is kind of Venusian energy. This is solar energy. That the whale person needs to understand and appreciate how much they have to offer in the situation. You know, milk and honey is all about abundance. It's about sweetness. It's about sort of the good things in life. So not kind of being stuck, as I said, in like victim mentality, or only sort of seeing the negative, like moving into kind of martyr energy, but actually just working on improving their kind of overall outlook and their expectations, and also just being optimistic that things can ultimately be sorted out, and that this will raise their vibration and will put them into more of alignment with things that do tend to work. You know, similar to this Ace of Pentacles energy, which is a fresh start that's constructive, that's solid, and that it's almost like a golden opportunity. So I think it really is sort of echoing this milk and honey here. So I think there is a golden opportunity here for both people to overcome their issues if they are willing to negotiate and communicate and open up a little bit. And then the connecting energy is a change of wind in the reverse, which kind of speaks about not being buoyed around too much by, you know, things like storms in a teacup or tempestuous behavior. So maybe not like taking the elk person so seriously. I mean, maybe they just sometimes, you know, they let off steam and they sort of say things that they don't really mean. As I say, they might be a little bit blustery. And I think maybe it's saying that in order for this connection to improve, that at root communication needs to improve, and maybe for the whale person, it's not taking the elk person so seriously, and not taking everything to heart either, not taking things personally. And maybe for the elk person to just realize that sometimes, you know, sometimes less is more, you know, so learning to like vent their frustrations in a more constructive way, or not necessarily feel that they always have to have the last word, or maybe also just realizing that they can be a little bit volatile. You know, this reminds me of this, you know, these two kings and this blowing hot and cold kind of energy. And it may be that, you know, that this is kind of at the root of the problem. And if the elk person can get to the bottom of why they do this, or just notice it more, then it could really help them to get out of the habit of doing that. Because it might hurt the whale person quite a lot. You know, they may have a low tolerance for excitement and risk, and just like things to be quite peaceful and, you know, easygoing, whereas the elk person might like a bit of excitement and like spice, if I can put it that way. But, you know, one man's, what's that saying? One man's pleasure is another man's poison, something like that. But anyway, let's get some final advice from, okay. I let go of the shadow of the past by seeing someone for the first time with the eyes of love. Yes, beautiful. So I do think that this is what, you know, is at the root of the situation, is the need to let go, first of all, that Four of Pentacles. Secondly, of the shadow of the past, or whatever's happened in the past. There's a need to sort of let go of the hurt, of that there needs to be forgiveness, so there needs to be reparations. First of all, one person saying they're sorry, so the L person taking action, maybe, you know, saying sorry or making overtures to show that they are, you know, that they do regret what happened. But then also seeing someone with the eyes of love for the first time. So also seeing someone through the eyes of this milk and honey, this much more abundant, sweet, forgiving energy. You know, that no one's perfect. It's no point in holding a grudge. You know, taking responsibility for, you know, how you both may contribute to the situation. It could be, as I say, passive-aggressive energy or ways of coping may set the elk person off as well. It may irritate them. So, yes, definitely a need to let go of the past and to be more kind of forgiving and less judgmental, and that this could really sort of drive things forward and bring these two people, you know, back together. Alright, so let's get a final card from the Angel Guidance deck. Gosh, these cards are quite bulky. Quite difficult to deal. You know, a little bit of flexibility, I think, goes a long way in this situation. Okay, let's see what we get. And these cards seem stuck together. Alright, so we've got this card here, Angel Reassurance. And it says, angels are there to nourish our being, not to feed our egos. Yes. So that does seem to be a bit of an issue here. Particularly if we think about the Six of Wands, it can be a little bit about pride and ego. So since 100 years ago, almost everyone believed in God. Every nation had a form of religious belief that was part of its culture. Now most countries are, you know, secular societies. Yet human beings require nurturing of mind, body, and spirit. People are hungry to fulfill a yearning to be complete. The angels can help us. They act as a link between the divine and us as messengers, conveying our thoughts and prayers to the source, and then on the returning impulse, bringing loving energy sort of back and prompting and guiding us through our thoughts and dreams. This enables our spiritual growth through love, so that we begin to understand how precious we truly are. So that does seem to be a sort of a big message here for this couple, that, self-love, as I say, I do feel like low self-confidence is at the root of both of these people's behaviors, even though they express their sort of inadequacy in very different ways. And that, coming out of ego and defensiveness and coming into more of a place of forgiveness and self-love, I think could really help to heal both these people and sort of drive things forward in terms of the connection. Because once we feel more like at peace within ourselves, we don't feel the need to like either impose ourselves on other people, or we don't need other people to sort of complete us. And then we come from a much more empowered place. So yes, I mean, a strong message here, I think, around self-worth, self-love, and forgiveness, in this reading. So let's end off with some name tiles. Okay, so we've got a Z, got a U, could be a T, a W, an L, and another Z. I'm going to put a few just so we've got some vowels, some more vowels. So we've got an E, an R, we've got a K, we've got a J. So those may be initials, they may be license plate numbers, they may be like country codes. Just kind of take them, as they resonate, and it doesn't necessarily mean that if you don't relate to those initials, of this reading isn't for you. But anyway, I hope that's been helpful. I hope that it's brought you the guidance and help that you need at this time. All the very best for the upcoming transits of Mars and Venus, and I'll see you again in a couple of weeks for my next lunar phase forecast.